Well, a very good evening to you, race fans. Welcome back to the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars series. We are here for round 4 at none other than Road America, one of the most iconic permanent road courses in the world. My name is Jared Cole. I'm joined tonight in the booth once again by Josh Harrison. Josh, this place is a bit of a V8 playground, isn't it? Long straights, big braking zones, and for what it's worth, with the little area they have, more slipstreaming than anywhere in any oval track around America, I reckon. It's going to be potentially a pretty wild night of racing.
Good evening, Jared. Thank you for having me along again. Super excited to be here. Pretty interesting racing coming up tonight, I reckon, but we'll get more into that in a minute. Very iconic track here at Road America. I actually haven't had the opportunity, Jared, to get out on track in a supercar and have a fang around this joint. What I can tell you, I have raced this quite a number of times in a GT3, and there's a couple of areas, particularly the fast kink out the back at the end of the or in the middle of the long straight, that even in a GT3 car is absolutely terrifying, and I would suggest that in a supercar it's going to be white knuckle, close your eyes, hope and pray. But if anyone can do it, the team here at ASR are the ones that will be able to.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about on this track. It is, look, it's terrifying no matter what car you're in, no matter how quick you're going in terms of sheer kilometers an hour, or how little grip you might have depending on the area you're running. It doesn't get any less terrifying when you throw it through there, because every single car that you bring to Road America is going through it at full noise. The full noise of a supercar, though, something a little bit different, so we'll see how that plays out tonight. I'm making a prediction that we're going to see some pretty interesting moves undertaken here. We've got some really massive braking zones at the end of course, the home straight into turn 1, and then into what is officially turn 4 at the end of that second straight. You can see on your screen there the big left-hander, an absolutely classic spot to put a move on, and in a supercar I'm sure that will be no different here tonight. 2 races again this evening. The drivers out on track undergoing their qualifying laps right now. Race 1, 8 laps, a pure sprint. Of course, it is a fairly long lap here, almost 6.5 kilometers, so you're still talking a little bit over 2 minutes per lap, but 8 laps is not a lot of time to get your moves done with the few braking zones that you do have. And then into race 2 we go with 25 laps, a reverse top 5 grid, 2 compulsory pit stops again this week, and again the 70% fuel capacity limit for these drivers to keep in mind. So a very, very interesting couple of races ahead of us, I am sure. Track temperature coming up a little bit since we started the practice session, actually quite a bit with the cars out on track. It was only about 22 degrees we got started. That track temp now registering 33, as the cars have put plenty of laps in during the practice session. Surprising actually to see the amount of difference the drivers have made there, Josh, in bringing that temp up.
Yeah, absolutely. Cars out on track will definitely do that. There's no doubt about it. We will see that temperature obviously rise pretty quickly as well when these guys are racing. But it's going to be exciting. I was just off having a bit of a look at a track map and really casting my mind around this circuit, Jared. There's actually a surprising amount of undulation here, and in a supercar that's going to be pretty wild. And of course, down the back into Canada Corner at turn 12, that whole run from the kink all the way down to Canada Corner is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to get going tonight, Jared. Hopefully these guys are able to get themselves locked away on the grid pretty soon, and we can focus on some flat-out racing.
With just a few minutes left in the qualifying session, let's take a look at the championship points as they stand at this point. We are rapidly approaching the midpoint of the season, and 3 drivers have cracked that 1,000-point mark already. Wayne Walker out in front on 1,072 points, with Jamie Dyke and Ken Latta from Fishy Motorsports not too far behind, 1,034 and 1,016 respectively. Don't count Scott Gamble out yet, nor Matt Vanderkraan though. They are not as far behind as it may look. But then the gap starts to increase pretty rapidly there. Mark Point and Stephen Varga really locked in a battle for 6th place at the moment. Likewise, Andrew Rushworth, Michael Stewart and Luke Allman, only 4 points separating 8th, 9th and 10th right now. and then a big drop back to Rain Campbell in 11th on 737. So a couple of really distinct battles here in the championship for this season. Josh, it's going to be an interesting one. I think we'll see what comes of tonight. I can tell you that Scott Gamble set the fastest time in practice and the only driver to actually get into the 2:08 time slot. Everyone else very, very low 2:09s. So it's going to be a very, very interesting one to see if he can, over the next few rounds, just claw back a little bit of that gap out to Wayne Walker and maybe even become a bit of a championship contender before the season is out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Scotty Gamble's fast everywhere, but we're seeing him present himself as fast tonight. There's a couple of other names that are floating around a little bit lower down that championship table, in the teens, and even lower that have got a really good turn of speed tonight. Names like Michael Stewart, Luke Orman, Daniel Hall. It's going to be interesting to see whether that is just one lap pace, or whether those guys are able to put a pretty impressive race night together. You'll remember, Jared, last week I really talked about the fact that this series is not over, and I would actually say that it's wide open. There's still so much to play for. Tonight may be where we start to see that come to fruition. We're at a track that's a little bit different to a lot of others. There's some parts of this track that will be really difficult to drive in a supercar, and maybe that's just going to throw the door open for a few other people to jump a bit further up the order than we would normally see them.
Look, entirely possible. I think the thing to watch tonight again, though, is if you're out on track and you are ahead of Wayne Walker at any point, you'd be doing everything you can to keep him there, because it seems like the minute he gets a bit of clean air in front of him, that's it. He walks away from the rest of the field. And so I think if he doesn't manage to qualify, out on pole, then the entire field's job here is to make sure that he's always got someone in front of him to keep him in touch with the rest of the field and make this a very, very exciting race night for us. Qualifying session just coming to an end. We are probably about 20 seconds away from gridding up, so we'll get ready to go down and check that out as the drivers just wrap up their final turns, and we get the official grid coming through from race control. Hopefully, and we'll take a quick look at that now. Here we go. Scott Gamble taking pole, not quite cracking into the 208s here in qualifying, but not far off it. Wayne Walker at 10th back. So already that's dangerous for the rest of this field. Vanderkran and Ladder on the second row from Angry Birds and Fishy Motorsports. Then Michael Stewart and Dean Logsdale ahead of Mark Poynton and Luke Orman. Daniel Hall and Jamie Dyke rounding out your front 10 for race number 1. Lon McKee and Damon Fisher behind that, with Stephen Varga and Mick Clifton in 13th and 14th. Then Troy Sipple and Andrew Rushworth line up ahead of Nick Heusler and Peter Sattler. Alistair Bales and Brad Grant round out your 20, with Simon Farrington and Phil Manuel behind them. Andrew Johnston and Craig Rose ahead of Scott Mackay and James Hardy. Ashley Hall, the privateer, the last on the grid, with Tim Nicol and Tim Lawson driving the safety cars this evening in cars 1 and 2, because it always helps, doesn't it, Josh, to have a backup safety car, just in case.
The hardware problems, power outages, all these sorts of things. I actually think having a backup safety car driver is a fantastic thing. Other things I think are fantastic. Daniel Hall having a really, really strong run in qualifying there, up in the 10, ahead of Jamie Dyke, who's second in the championship. One of Fishy Motorsports' fastest. We know how fast Jamie is. Daniel Hall having a great run. He sits 20th in the championship. He's had his struggles this season. Hopefully that pace is genuine for tonight, and he has a really, really good race night. And it wasn't just a bit of one lap speed. I'd really like to see him have the opportunity to show us exactly how fast he is.
Yeah, agreed. And there's a couple other names that have found their way to the front of the grid here for race 1 that perhaps, again, just haven't managed to put it together so far this season, despite having that pace. The likes of Dean Logsdale, Michael Stewart's up there as well. I mean, Ken Ladder's obviously doing well this season, but Mark Poynton's been in amongst it all season, hasn't he? We've seen plenty of that frog-lit juice car, and I think it's just bad luck, honestly, that he's not had better results so far. Maybe tonight will be his night here at Road America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a reasonably mixed grid, and I think that's exciting. 8 laps is going to be reasonably quick. Still somewhere in the vicinity of 16, 17 minutes of racing, but tyres won't wear out over 8 laps. Fuel certainly won't run out. This is absolutely foot flat to the floor, and get your 8 laps done as fast as you can.
As we wait for just the last cars to grid up here, we're waiting on the word from race control all the way back at the really just over the hill there. You can almost see the end of the grid, but not quite. But we're just about ready to get underway. You can see Wayne Walker just giving the engine some revs. He's ready to get rolling. As we get word comes through, we are ready to go racing. The lights come up. We are in the starter's hands now. Scott Gamble will be looking for a solid start here, and we are green for race number 1. Gamble and Walker jump off to a pretty solid start. Jamie Dyke already looking to make a move up through the field as we thunder down the hill towards turn 1. Gamble and Walker side by side. Gamble's got the inside run, and he's going to try and keep Walker as far behind as possible. We've got a brake lock up already. Somehow, there's big contact, and that's Mark Poynton and Matt Vanderkraan off to the side of the track there. We were just talking about Mark Poynton, and immediately we've got, that was Dean Logsdale going sideways through that turn. Not the start that any of these drivers would hope for. That's the XCM entry now of Alistair Bales off to the side of the circuit. We've got multiple cars off the track. Not a great start for a lot of this field, and unfortunately a real risk of us going straight to a safety car. We'll wait and see whether everyone's got a big moment in the background there as well. Dean Logsdale just didn't pull it up at all, and you saw him fly off the back of the field. But out in front, Ken Latter and Scott Gamble. Ken Latter is he's in amongst it still, and he's actually gotten past Wayne Walker in amongst all of the noise and confusion.
I'm really struggling for words, Jared. It seems that tonight it was a bit of a case of helmets on, maybe at least brains turned off at the start. There was just a huge amount of pushing and shoving and bashing and barging. Only an 8-lap race, but we do need to make it through 8 laps. So hopefully these guys now can settle into a bit of a rhythm. A couple of names a long way down the list from where they started. Matt Vanderkraan down in 23rd, Poynton 24th. They were some names that we're talking about being right up the front at the start of race 1. On the grid for this race 1. I'm interested to see when things do settle down into a little bit of a rhythm. I'd really love to see a couple of replays from that turn 1, because there was one car in particular that was a long way down the inside. I didn't catch who it was, Jared, but that really set off a series of chain reactions, which just appeared. Everyone got a little bit out of whack, a little bit out of shuffle, and before you know it, they're all squabbling over position, and things just turned very poorly, very quickly for a number of cars.
Yeah, we see everyone starting to settle in now. Dean Logsdale starting to try and recover his position as he makes his way past Craig Rose into turn 1. We've got a few things to go back and look at. You notice, of course, the messages coming through from race control there with the drive-through penalty for Mark Poynton, which is it's adding insult to injury after he's had a couple of crashes already so far. But I think probably safe to say that he was more than likely involved at the start here. Now, I do want to check right back, because we had a very, very early indication of a crash between Luke Allman and Lorne McKee, and I'm not sure whether that's legitimate or just our telemetry picking up a slow start from both. But let's go and have a look at that quickly before we then take a bit of a look at some of the other moments from this start. And we see Allman there in the red and blue. Looking for Lorne McKee. So far so good. I'm just wondering if perhaps it's a little further down the track that he's had the issue, or whether for some reason this has been picked up as an incident. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. Now, that first contact, the WMG car there of Michael Stewart actually turning, it looked like turning Mark Poynton and Vanderkraan. So keep your eye on Michael Stewart in the orange and white.
Mark Poynton has been penalised here. I have a feeling.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting one. Up the inside.
I do wonder whether Mark Poynton got into the back of the 81 car on the way into turn one, which is what set off that, that very fast approach. But now we do jump forward just a little bit.
Mr. Bales just extends himself off the track, turns himself across the front of another car and just taps the wall there. We'll go back to the live shot and just check in on this race now, because everyone's starting to really settle down. You see a couple of pit stops happening here and there with drivers with a little bit of damage to repair, but the big news for me so far, Wayne Walker has actually been held back in the pack so far. That's a very, very different start to what we've been seeing. And you've got a little battle group forming up just behind that as well.
It is a little bit different what we're used to seeing with Wayne Walker, but it's a three-lap race. There's no strategy involved in this, Jared. This is absolutely max attack, and we know that Scott Gamble and Ken Latta are pretty damn fast. So it doesn't surprise me at all when there's no consideration that needs to be taken for looking after the tyres or conserving fuel or anything. It does not surprise me at all.
Just full noise, start to finish. Why not?
Yeah, just full noise. Absolutely. Bury that foot as far in the firewall as you can possibly get it, and don't let it back out.
It's my favourite kind of racing, honestly. Now, Brad Grant got caught up in all of that as well, and I'm just trying to decide where exactly this happened. So alongside Phil Manuel, a little bit of a touch there, and then just can't pull it up, and ends up just going across and taking out a couple of cars on the way through. Oh, look, honestly, lucky not to do more damage to the Angry Birds car there on the way through. But then, of course, Dean Logsdale had a big moment amongst all that, and then Mark Poynton, after that initial one, with no front bar on it, under brakes, just a huge lock-up, and ends up well off the track. You can see he's carrying quite a lot of damage on that car, trying to get it back to the pits from there. Scott Mackay also having issues on this, well, essentially the opening lap still, but just a big moment on the outside, makes contact there, and manages to keep it off the fence, but I would not be trying to go too wide through that kink, I can tell you that.
No, too wide through the kink doesn't work in any car, and especially not a supercar. That is an incredibly fast piece of track. And like I said, Jared, in GT3 car with lots of aero, traction control, all of the aids that you can imagine, you do get through there flat. But it is an absolutely white knuckle ride. It is incredibly intimidating to have to keep. Oh, as we see here,
Craig Rose, big lock up, and that's losing him a couple of positions. Johnston and Hall go through for 18th and 19th, and Rose relegated to 20th as he tries to get moving again. It's going to be one of those sort of braking zones. I think turn one, you're coming in at such a high speed and trying to leave the braking as late as possible. But, of course, there's always that risk, a little bit of a lock-up in a Gen 3 supercar, and you are well off the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ashley Hall is having a pretty good run, I've got to be honest. We've seen Ashley this season have a pretty significant number of issues, and they're doing a fantastic job, just chilling out there in 19th, and I really hope that that's not a commentator's curse, but a really nice run tonight, just settling down and enjoying turning out some good quality laps and moving along, just tucked in behind Johnston.
Two Team AJR cars here, Luke Orman and Damon Fisher, just tucked in nicely, 7th and 8th, so setting themselves up pretty well for race number 2 at this stage. We're about the halfway point of this opening sprint, and the news out in front is unchanged. Scott Gamble and Ken Latta controlling this pack at the front, with Wayne Walker not too far behind them. Interestingly though, Walker starting to really have to work to reel Latta in at this point. Michael Stewart even starting to catch as well, and you see a penalty there for car number 89. That's Brad Grant. Unsurprisingly, for his little excursion through the middle of the pack at the bottom of the second straight. So all in all, not a terribly harsh penalty, and probably just due to luck more than anything that he didn't cause more damage than that when he did go through the middle of it.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a slam dunk penalty, and I don't think anyone is surprised to see it. Jared, we're already lap 5 this race. We are still moving through the absolute carnage of lap 1, and we are already in the second half of this race. I'm not sure that there'll be a huge amount of change. I don't think that the guys at the front want to risk a huge amount for such a small race. But you never know, as we do now quickly flip back and have a look at Craig Rose and Ashley Hall and see them having a nice little battle.
They're still going on down at the back of the field, and this one has just been brewing for a little while. Sippel, Heusler and Varga. Would it be anyone else other than Quantum and Angry Birds, honestly? It's always a pleasure to see these guys starting to mix it up, and Heusler's caught in the middle of Sippel and Varga at the moment in a battle for 11th. It'll be interesting to see if Heusler can negotiate a bit of a pass here somewhere. But for the moment, pretty content to sit in there. He's up 5 spots from where he started. Vargs is right where he started in 13th. So he's one of the few drivers that hasn't benefited from all the chaos going on around him, honestly.
Do you think, Jared, when these two teams come together, which is pretty frequently, let's face it,
it is regular.
It is regular. Do you think that the intensity rises or just the aggression?
That's a good question. I actually don't think there's any extra level of intensity, but I actually think it comes from having raced each other for so long, the level of familiarity with each other, and in terms of how hard they can push. I think it's actually more almost a greater sense of trust in the other driver's ability, and that actually ends up in them trying moves that they probably wouldn't put on anyone else. And perhaps that's why it looks like a slightly more aggressive approach between the two teams.
It's fair.
That's my take on it. I'm quite happy for any of the boys to jump in and tell me I'm wrong, and actually they do hate each other or something like that. But no, I think it's actually more a case of that level of familiarity allowing them to try some interesting strategies, let's say.
That's fair. That's fair. It's always good fun racing people that you have raced for a long time, and particularly people that you get along really well with. There's nothing more than taking a couple of psychological wins that you can take back to the Discord server and really get stuck into each other about.
Mate, still waiting for the first time I get to take a win over you. It'll happen one day, maybe.
It will. I'm sure it'll happen. We've got 2 hours on Friday night that we can duke it out.
It's very true. I'm just hoping you put it in a wall. It's about my only chance, I suspect. Wayne Walker, though.
It's something that I do regularly, mate. It's something that I do.
That's it. I'm counting on it. Now, this long right-hander, this is an interesting one. Walker is pushing hard, just trying to force a mistake from ladder. It's a tough corner in most cars, but in a Gen 3 supercar especially, that's just going to absolutely chew tyres in race 2, isn't it?
It is. You're going to have to be really clever in that corner to not destroy your tyres, not get a whole heap of understeer, and really scrub the fronts. And the other thing that you have to consider is minimising any sliding, because the kink, that really fast kink that I referenced a couple of times, is the very next corner. So the last thing that you want to do is massively, as we see here, Wayne Walker has looked down the inside on the last corner. A bit of a rub there, and a big moment. Yeah, just a little nudge, but a huge moment for Wayne Walker as we do cross the line for the second last lap. I think that is Wayne Walker done. That should, provided that they don't make any mistakes, see Scott Gamble and Ken Latta have the first 2 positions wrapped up. I don't think that Wayne is going to get back onto the back of Ken to challenge him. The thing here is, does Stewart have enough pace to put a bit of a race on here for the final podium position?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. We haven't seen Michael Stewart feature probably as heavily at the podium as he would certainly like to this season. But we know he's got pace, and demonstrating it here. He's just quietly been chipping away at the front 3 to stay in touch with them, and he's set up very nicely. Now we've got a meatball flag for Craig Rose. by the look of things. And that is a new addition, incidentally, to our broadcast software. We do actually get visibility now of the black flags and meatballs. As Craig Rose has suffered enough damage, it would seem, that he needs to actually get in and get that sorted out. So he'll be getting pitted in and getting some repairs done, hopefully back out on track. But Michael Stewart, yeah, he's certainly in with a shot. In fact, we might just jump on board with him, because this is a great opportunity to have a look at this kink and just how fast it is. So coming out of that long right-hander, and have a look at this, just the slightest dab on the brakes to get the front end turned in, but using every bit of the track. And you've actually got to be so careful, because it's very, very easy to get an off track on both the inside and outside of that turn as well. And then as you come down here through the shadows, and you can see Michael Stewart in VR as well, which makes it a whole other level of interesting, I can tell you that from experience. Very, very hard to pick your markers in these sort of weather conditions. A lot of it obscured by the shadows of the trees alongside the track, but all of it very, very high pace right throughout.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job just hanging with the guys in front. He looks to be reasonably well protected from Hall behind. And I don't think that we'll see anything particularly crazy. What I do need to do, though, Jared, is absolutely eat my words. Wayne Walker has put himself right back up on the back of Ken Ladder. Do we see a move here for second place, or is Wayne Walker really comfortable at this point to just see the race out in third? Time will tell. I'm not sure that I would be doing too much. I certainly wouldn't want to risk an accident, but we do love to see good, hard racing, especially right at the back end of the race.
We do, as Lon McKee gives up the position to Damon Fisher just behind the battle up ahead, but he's looking to have another crack, but it gets on the brakes actually, so he doesn't roll past too quickly. Here we go down the hill into the braking zone, hard under brakes. A very, very deep line there from McKee. An opportunity for Fisher to respond, can't get the power down. So Lon McKee moves through and takes that position. We've said this so many times over. Yeah, you know what? A logical decision here for Wayne Walker is actually just sit in third, just comfortably get home, and then know that he's going to be starting with that reverse top 5 grid. He'll be starting ahead of Gamble and Ladder, so already set up with a little bit of an advantage for the longer race. But that's not how these guys' brains are wired, is it? It's not what I'm expecting in the slightest. I think Walker's going to look for a move here, and if it's on, he'll take it regardless.
Yeah, so there they go through the kink. He's going to be trying to get a run down now into Canada corner. And if he can't get it done on the way into Canada, he's definitely going to be trying for a run out. We see Ladder just position the car, near the midpoint of the track, but there it is. Wayne Walker used a lot less track there. He's up beside him. Left-hander hidden navigator on the outside, but if he can hang there, he's on the inside last corner. He's done it. He has managed to hold onto that outside line, and he will now look to absolutely slam the door closed on the way out of that corner. The very last corner, it is a drag line to the finish as they go up over the hill. Who is going to make it? Ken Ladder chasing a bit of that side draft, and it is going to be Wayne Walker by 3/100ths of a second, Joe.
Yeah, Walker was looking for the gap, and Ladder just a little bit too wide on the exit of that turn, gave him all the invitation that he needed, and Wayne Walker pounces and takes P2. So all things finishing more or less as they started on the front row. Scott Gamble taking the reasonably comfortable, in the scheme of things, a reasonably comfortable win there, as we see the rest of the field making their way across the line. But Scott Gamble, a very, very comfortable, you've got to say, drive. He wasn't super quick by any means, didn't pull out any, massive 5 or 6 second leads, but over the course of 8 laps, you can't argue with a second and a half back to second. That's what I'm going to call a pretty comfortable drive on his part.
Yeah, I think comfortable is the word there, Jared. He was just driving, his own race. He did a 9.2 early on in the race, and was comfortably sitting, at a 10.2. Wayne Walker only did a 10.9 on that last lap. So Scott Gamble was definitely made, or his winning margin was definitely made to look better by the guys in second and third battling on that last lap. But I would call that a really comfortable race. He just turned laps out, did what he had to do. He wasn't under pressure at any point in that, and there's no real point in driving off down the road at 1,000,000 miles an hour if you're not under pressure.
And just cruising around in the background on the in-lap here, Daniel Hall, you mentioned he had a pretty good qualifying time getting up into ninth, actually finishing in fifth, so he'll be starting on the front row, which he'll be stoked with, I'm sure. A really, really good result for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Stewart as well. So Daniel Hall, Michael Stewart on the front row for this next race, which is a great result for them. Jamie Dyke up 4 into 6th. So pretty unusual to see him a little bit further down, but did a fantastic job to avoid that lap 1 carnage, having started at the back end of the top 10. And, you know, it was good to see that calm down quickly, Jared, because what we've now got is a race that is 3 times the length of that.
Yeah, it's a very, very different prospect now, of course, as we get into the core race of the evening ahead of us. So we'll see how it looks after 25 laps, but at the moment, no great surprises up the front end of the field. Scott Campbell taking the win there ahead of Wayne Walker and Ken Latta. Michael Stewart getting home in 4th with Dan Hall in 5th. Jamie Dyke in 6th, still in the mix with Luke Allman and Laura McKee not far behind. Damon Fisher squeaks into the top 10 ahead of Mick Clifton, and then Sipple, Manuel, Sattler and Farrington ahead of Nick Heusler. Stephen Varga dropping back to 16th in the end ahead of Andrew Johnston and Ashley Hall. Matt Vanderkruijt and Mark Point never quite recovering from that lap 1 incident, finding themselves in 19th and 20th. A bit disappointing for them, of course, but a longer race here to try and make some of that back, I am sure. And then beyond them, Craig Rose and Andrew Rushworth, the last of the drivers to finish on the lead lap. Brad Grant in 23rd ahead of Scott Mackay and Dean Logsdale. Alistair Bales in 26th after the opening lap incident. And James Hardy, I don't believe we actually saw him take the track, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know that we'll be giving him
8 laps down.
Yeah, it doesn't look promising for him having made it to the start line, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't.
But look, a pretty good opening race. Gives us a bit of a flavour of what to expect. I wasn't surprised to see the chaos that we did there in turn 1. You and I were talking before we jumped on air, Josh, and we kind of said it was either going to be a bit of a procession across 8 laps, or it was going to be all-out sprint and people throwing in some moves that they probably wouldn't otherwise attempt. And I think we got the latter there, didn't we?
Well, I think we kind of got both. I still think that the majority of the carnage on lap 1 was caused by one incident starting a chain of events after that. And what that means is, there was all these people, they were out of cycle, they were doing, they were jostling for position because there were slow cars and stuff, and one thing led to another, which led to another. But very, very quickly after that, it settled into an 8-lap procession. I hope that this track is conducive to pretty good racing in a supercar, and that what we now get to see is 25 laps of really good racing, as opposed to 25 laps of no passing and these guys building out a great big bunch of leads on each other, because Road America has the potential to be fantastic. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely does. Simon Haynes chipping in from the chat. G'day, Simon. Hope you're doing well. James Hardy might be in the safety car. Yeah, possible. It is possible. I might have to check in on that. Actually, we've had a bit of a rotation of safety car drivers lately, but I was hoping with Tim Nicol and Tim Lawson back around that wouldn't be the case. So we'll have to have a look into that, I suspect. Hope you're doing well, Simon. On that note, we're probably about a minute or so away from starting to grid for race number 2, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back even after these messages from our primary sponsors. Well, welcome back, race fans. We are just about ready to get gridded for race number 2 here this evening at Road America with the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars series. And of course, just a reminder of the setup here: a reverse top 5 grid, 2 compulsory pit stops, and a 70% fuel capacity limit. So we'll have to see how much strategy plays in here. If we do see a safety car here this evening, then it will probably play fairly heavily, I would think, into the pit stop strategies. Let's take a look at the grid though. Mostly as they finished in race number 1, with the exception of that top 5 though. Daniel Hall and Michael Stewart will now be on the front row ahead of Ken Latta and Wayne Walker. Scott Gamble in 5th, the last of the reverse positions, and Jamie Dyke in 6th, where he finished. Luke Orman and Lorne McKee ahead of Damon Fisher. Oh, it's not going well for me tonight, is it, Josh? And then Mick Clifton rounding out the top 10. Troy Sipple and Phil Manuel in 11th and 12th ahead of Sattler and Farrington. Then Heusler and Varga ahead of Johnston and Ashley Hall. Matt Vanderkraan and Mark Poynton in 19th and 20th will be looking to improve their finish significantly. Craig Rose and Andrew Rushworth line up ahead of Brad Grant and Scott Mackay. And then Dean Logsdale and Alistair Bales on row 13. James Hardy, might be down the back there, or might actually be in the safety car. I will have to check that out. But Tim Nicol and Tim Lawson confirmed as in the session as race control, as we start to get ready to go racing here again, Josh. And I suspect Wayne Walker's going to put a pretty solid move on Michael Stewart here if he gets a chance into turn 1.
Of course, absolutely. You can't you can't do anything less when you get one of those opportunities. There's no doubt about that. I am just trying to work out, Jared. I'm just trying to do some math around fuel usage and that sort of stuff at this track, and working out what that 70% fuel cap actually looks like for these guys.
Yeah, and I don't think it's actually going to play. I could be off the mark, but so far at least, the fuel limit hasn't really played a massive part in pit stop strategy, because it's more than enough fuel each time around. But I think it's probably the intent is to make sure that that second compulsory pit stop isn't actually just an in 1 litre on and back out, that there is actually some kind of need to stop and think about taking some fuel in that second stop is my guesstimate on the intent of that one.
I actually think that with an event like this, that tyres are going to be your biggest drama, and it's looking like roughly 5.2 litres per lap.
Well, we'll see how much they use here.
Somewhere in the vicinity of 17 to 18 laps per team, Jared.
Well, there you go.
We'll keep that in the back of our mind.
We get ready to go racing once again. Watch the start here as Hall and Stewart take off from the front row. Wayne Walker gets a cracker of a start, as does Scott Gamble behind him. And we make our way down towards turn 1 once again. Wayne Walker, you can see, already moving to the inside and looking to squeeze Michael Stewart out if possible. And it looks like he might just get that done. We don't have any smoke flying up from contact this time around. Everyone keen to actually survive the first few corners, which is a welcome change from race number 1. Wayne Walker makes a move to the front. Michael Stewart's trying to go with him now, but Scott Gamble gets the pass done on Michael Stewart as well as they head under the Cheese Bridge. I'm sure it's got a better name than that, but it's always been the Cheese Bridge to me, Josh.
I really like that, I've got to be honest.
It's just going to be the Cheese Bridge. That's the best name for it, I'm sure. Jamie Dyke getting very, very loose under brakes. Big wiggle on there as we see a couple of cars in the background just touching that inside dirt and going a little deep as a result. A very, very tough braking zone, particularly in traffic. And we've got contact in the background. That's Varga and Heusler coming together. Simon Farrington getting caught up in it as well. We'll go back and take a look at that shortly. But lap 1, broadly speaking, a little cleaner than the start of race number 1.
Well, we're only 2/3 of the way through the lap, Jared. You've just done a great job of putting a commentator's cursor.
I do what I can.
If there's going to be anywhere that you've got potential for a large incident here at the kink, one person makes a mistake early on in the race, and look at that. You think that these guys aren't going flat out. That shows just how fast this kink is with some of the cars all the way to the outside of the track. And then a huge braking zone here. Really difficult, I would expect, in these cars. Like I said, I haven't done many laps. We see here
Mick Clifton looking to go 3 wide with Sattler and Manuel. That's bold, to say the least. Peter Sattler comes out the best of it, but only just.
Yeah, absolutely, and that braking zone down there at Canada Corner, you're turning all the way right until you apply the brakes, which will be difficult to get these cars settled. But we do see the first lap done, and Wayne Walker already all over the back. Look at him
push up the inside against the pit wall. Daniel Hall trying his best to defend, but leaves just enough of a car width there that Wayne Walker sees the opportunity, gets up alongside. Now, Dan Hall's got a good run here out of turn 1, but Walker very, very well established on the inside. And here goes Wayne Walker. You know what he's looking to do here. Watch him try and open up this gap. Dan Hall goes with him. Scott Gamble coming along for the ride as well. Hall gets himself tucked right in behind that rear bar. He's going to try and get a little bit of side draft to slow him down here as they approach the braking zone, and he's forcing Walker to go very, very close to the inside of this corner, and Hall's done a great job of putting the pressure on. They exit side by side. Hall actually gets out in front. Contact there. That forces Wayne Walker back inside. Gamble pounces, and Hall and Gamble both make the move past Walker. That was a great little exchange.
And we see now Hall and Walker G'ing up to go again. Hall got a bad run out of that last corner. Scott Gamble through to the lead. He's back in that familiar position. And we'll see now whether Wayne Walker can get it done a second time. These cars, they love a bit of rough and tumble when you're getting the passes done. But once they are out of shape, it is really difficult to get them facing back the way that you want, Jared, and especially once you've got a bit of wheel spin and whatnot. So Wayne Walker will be looking to get the very best through the kink here that he can. Big long run now. Oh, as we see Sattler all the way out in the grass. That would have been very, very scary. As we see here, it was Ken Ladder, yeah.
Super wide.
Yeah, very, very brave. He didn't appear to lose much time, so he's kept his firmly planted in it, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, these guys back in their little train, trying to get this done. Wayne Walker just dropped off the back there a little bit. He was trying really hard. You see him there. Big sideways action off the corner. The second last corner, he was in the grass and lost a bit of momentum. Don't think that because these cars look a little bit sedate, don't fall for the trap that these guys aren't pushing absolutely as hard as they possibly can, as we do see cars go too wide in the background and start to think about a pass.
And Mark pointed into the pits early. I wonder if that's a planned stop.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get 17 laps off of a tank, Jared. So by lap 8, you can probably look to make your second pit stop and run the whole way home. I reckon Point was already a long way down the back of the field. Do your first stop, fuel all the way to the very top, and then probably run around and see whether you snag a safety.
Yeah, it's worth a look, isn't it? Speaking of worth a look, let's go back and take a look at that opening lap incident. Nick Häusler and Stephen Varga getting all sorts of sideways as they came together, just going up the hill, a little bit of contact through the turn, and just enough to get them both sideways. Unfortunately, Häusler getting probably the worst of it, but it looks like Simon Farrington there, who ended up spun in front, perhaps all on his own. I don't know that there was actually contact that caused that. Let's take a look with a focus on him here. He's actually, oh no, he has clipped the back of Häusler's car, and they've all come together in the most awkward of ways there. Farrington backs up out of there and gets moving again, but geez, a really tricky one to untangle when you've got 3 cars all nose together with not a lot of room to move.
Yeah, absolutely, and you probably couldn't have got, as you said, not a more awkward way for those guys to end up coming together. One thing I'm noticing, Jared, just looking down that totem pole, not much separation between the cars, where whether these guys know that maybe there's a bit of tyre conserving that has to go on. As we see now, Wayne Walker, he's had enough. He is into the pits. He feels, no doubt, that he is faster than Paul and potentially even Gamble. And he has said enough's enough. And he's going to put fresh tyres on, fill himself right to the very brim, and try for the undercut, try and get some track position by way of some clever strategy.
Worth noting, we've seen a Vanderkrant special for the first time in a long time. I can't remember the last time we've seen Matt Vanderkrant start the second race in a position where a lap 1 pit stop is actually on the cards for him. But sure enough, tonight, after the shocker of a first race that he had, he's come in on lap 1 and has got that pit stop done. So he's back in 22nd. Take a look at the gap that ends up there between himself and Wayne Walker, because that'll be interesting to watch as the race develops.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably bigger than we might have hoped it would be.
I have to think probably about 6 or 7 seconds as a guess.
At a minimum, I would say. It's out of about
12,
13.
Yeah.
And you would expect Wayne Walker on a fresh set tyres will eke that out to probably somewhere about 14. But that's got Matt Vanderkrant in a position where he's on his own. He's not battling with someone. He isn't. He's not worried or in hot air or suffering from someone else's race. He's just doing his own thing. It'll move him forward. Does it move him into race winning contention? Probably not. But it will help him move forward. There's no doubt about it.
Have a look at how much these cars are sliding on the way through that kink. It's phenomenal to watch that they're going at it. It's not surprising, don't get me wrong, that they're at that pace, but when you actually see it from that ground level and you recognise just how fast they're moving and sliding through there at the same time, gives you a whole new level of respect for the amount of car control that these drivers are showing us here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And, to get through that kink in particular is a huge amount of commitment required to get the most out of the car. And there will be significant gains and losses in lap time through that one corner alone. There's a couple of other corners, Jared. The one where we saw the incident back on lap 1 up the top of the hill, I think that's turn 6. As we see someone in the background there.
But Craig Rose off the track again, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Going for a little four-wheel drive tour of the local beach. But turn 6, I believe it is, Jared. It's at the top of a crest, and you sort of brake and turn at the top of the crest. The car's really unweighted, and you actually can't see the apex of the corner. It's almost entirely blind. It's a very, very difficult corner, and people who master it will gain a huge amount of lap time through there compared to those who don't. And, everyone in this field, let's face it, to race these cars competitively week in, week out, you have to be good at driving them. The difference between being at the front of this field and the back of the field is getting the last couple of percent. And this is the corner I'm talking about, Jared. You come up the hill here and you're sort of braking and thinking about turning, and you've got to get to the apex, and you can't see the apex at any point until you turn in, and that's where the very best drivers shine from just those who are good at driving a supercar.
Thankfully, we've got an entire field of some of the very best supercar drivers that I think you'll find anywhere outside of the G Pro contest, honestly. The drivers here on track, so many years of experience behind the wheel of virtual supercars. I'm actually not sure if there's any real-world supercar experience amongst it, but I will have to ask that at some stage, I reckon. Johnson, Varga and Heusler all going at it here for P13. Johnson just barely holding on, but Vargas has got a bit of a run on here, and Heusler will try and follow him around the outside. They come down towards Canada.
I don't know if you saw it, Jared, but Johnson had a huge amount of brake on going into the kink here. Oh, as we see,
Heusler just
Varga,
keeps it straight, just.
Yes, that was close, but Johnson had a huge amount of brake on going into the kink. Oh, as we see,
big contact there from Ladder into Hall, and he'll redress that immediately. But it's going to cost them both some positions here. Gets out of the way. Hall goes through, as does Jamie Dyke, as does Lon McKee.
Yeah, it's probably nothing else that Ladder could have done there. It's very hard to redress a position like that with guys coming through fast. I think that there'll still be a small penalty attached to that as, unfortunately, even though Ladder redressed, of course, Hall is still affected as well. But we will wait and see what Race Control's got to say. The good thing is, in my opinion, Ladder did the right thing. He made the mistake. He's redressed that now, and he can get back on and get about racing. If there's a penalty to come, there's a penalty to come. There's just absolutely nothing that you can do about it now. You've just got to race the best race you can.
100%. Hey, Wayne Walker just set the fastest time there as well, at 2:09.6 or thereabouts on that fresh set of tyres. So he's pushing on with that open air in front of him. The question will be how quickly he closes in the back of Craig Rose there in 15th and whether that holds him up at all. But this crew here will all be starting to think about when their first pit stop will be. Do they go for the early pit stop, or do they actually make the first stint the longest and go for a shorter couple of stints beyond that? Every lap that carries on, though, is greater and greater risk of a safety car. And I think that'd have to be the Vanderkraan dream at the moment, wouldn't it? A safety car right about now. Or maybe, look, let's say 2 or 3 laps time, a safety car would be absolutely perfect.
I reckon, Jared, if you can get through 17 laps, if a safety car came out now, you take it.
Oh yeah, and fuel saving and just make it work.
And you hope like hell that you can fuel save enough. And sure enough, there we see Hall go diving in. He has had enough. He's been roughed up once. He doesn't want any more to do with that. And we will see where Hall comes out in comparison to Wayne Walker.
It'll be interesting to see that. We've already seen Walker go past a couple of cars that have made their first pit stop. And of course, none of them from the lead group just yet. So keep your eye on Dan Hall in 10th right now as he falls down the totem pole while in the pit bay. It's a long pit bay, actually. It's a very, very long transit time here at Road America, particularly because it's such a fast straight and it's such a long straight that you are dealing with down there in the lead up to turn 1. And so you do lose an enormous amount of time. As we see a 5-second penalty for car 015. That's Nick Heusler for a pit lane breach. So the stewards very, very clear last week that the pit lane penalties were going to be applied pretty sternly from this point forward in the season, and we've already seen a couple of those handed out here tonight.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see today in the Discord, Jared, a little bit of context came out for the guys racing tonight, because Road America has a slightly odd pit lane setup with essentially 2 fast lanes. But yeah, potentially just a little bit of a mistake there for Nick Heusler.
He won't be alone in copying that one tonight, I'm sure. Dan Hall's back out on track. Finds himself just a couple of tenths behind Craig Rose. Gets the pass done around the outside as best he can. But Wayne Walker still 4 seconds ahead of Dan Hall, so definitely a fair bit of a gap there for him to try and make up.
Jared, if I'm Dan Hall and on my in lap I've been roughed up by Ken Sattler, I've lost a bit of time and I've ended up in a battle pack and I come out 4 seconds behind Wayne Walker, I'm probably pretty happy, to be honest.
Yeah, possibly not so happy with the 5-second pit lane breach penalty that he's just received, though, I suspect.
Oh no!
So that 4 seconds, that's more like 9 now, unfortunately, come race end.
Dear. No, I missed that.
No, it literally came across the screen as you were saying how happy you'd be, mate. So you could not have timed it better, in my opinion. It does make for some interesting commentary.
Look, his happiness, he just went from really happy to really sad. I know all about that, Jared. Having been in a podium position last night and on the right strategy, I decided to blow a supercar engine. I know how easy it is to go from very happy to very sad in an instant, and
you're in a glass case of emotions when you're in a supercar, aren't you?
I was not in a good way, Jared. But I can certainly say that if if I'm Daniel Hall, Look, I probably, mate, if you watch this back later on, I fully get it. I know how you're feeling right now, and it absolutely sucks. There's no doubt about it.
Got Mackay now, looks to get the pass done on Craig Rose as well. McKay's already through. Mackay charges on through. Rose gets out of the way fairly comfortably, and they continue to try and reel in the likes of Walker, Hall and Ladder, who are establishing themselves at the moment as fairly comfortable race leaders when you start to consider pit stops. Of course, all a second stop yet to make, but I don't know. Wayne Walker, he's right where he wants to be at the moment. He's not in a battle for his position. He's got some nice clean air ahead of him. He's have a look at it. He's got no pressure from behind at the moment. Dan Hall's still there and closing the gap, we'll add. He's closed a half second and continues to reel it in, but Wayne Walker, no concerns out in front at all. The next car's some 15 seconds up the road. Michael Stewart's just come in from P2, so it'll be interesting to see where Wayne Walker comes out in relation to him. Scott Gamble's still on the move, though.
Yeah, he's absolutely pushing out the front. There's no doubt about that. And it's interesting, Jared, two strategies coming up here. All the guys who have pitted have taken a very quick stop. They've pitted less than halfway into the potential length of the stint, and that means that there's only so much fuel they can put on board. Gamble, Dyke, Varga out the front, those guys running longer and longer and longer. That's going to give them more potential at their first stop, a potentially longer first stop, which will no doubt put them back. We do now jump back to Ashley Hall as we do come up underneath the bridge here at turn 6. And there we go, just that little bobble over the top of the hill upweights the car, and unfortunately sees him have a bit of a spin, but pretty well caught, and no damage there, so they'll keep on trucking along and just keep on doing what they do. My point, Jared, is I think that these first pit stop really going to throw a little bit of chaos in the mix for us. The guys at the front will take significantly longer first pit stops, and that's going to put them way down the order. But of course, the real test comes at the second pit stop, when the early stoppers have a long stop to do and the late stoppers have a short stop, and that's, we're kind of in this limbo land now for probably another 10 laps, I reckon, Jared. While these guys sort everything out, we're just going to sit here and look pretty. I say that I'm doing that because I'm not on camera, so no one knows the actual truth. We're going to chat about some race car stuff, maybe do an onboard lap, and really just chew the fat until these guys sort themselves out, because we're kind of going to be in limbo and not have a really particularly clear picture.
Interesting to see Stewart come out ahead of Hall after his pit stop, so it's a well-timed stop from Stewart. Scott Gamble's in, as is Jamie Dyke out in front. So look, Stewart and Hall have a real opportunity here to try and catch up to Wayne Walker, and they have really started to, look, I won't say evaporate the gap that he had, but it's down to 2 seconds now. Makes me wonder if there's a bit of a different strategy going on here, because this is unusual to see Walker shedding time like this.
There could be a bit of strategy. It wouldn't surprise me at all, to be honest, if Hall is just absolutely flat out. He has to be flat out, Jared. He can't afford to to slow down. He's got a 5-second penalty hanging over his head, and he needs to get every single second done that he can.
Gamble's made it out ahead of Stewart as well, so that's a very, very good pit stop from Scott Gamble to get back out in front. We'll go and check out that pack as well in a moment. In fact, let's take a look just off the back of Wayne Walker's car while we're on board with him, and you can see, it's gone from one car chasing down with Dan Hall. He's now got, 4? Scott Gamble, Michael Stewart, Dan Hall, Jamie Dyke's in there as well. Ken Ladder is not too much further back from that pack as well. So the rearview mirror is starting to fill up a little bit for Wayne Walker.
Yeah, it is, and interestingly, over those first 5 cars, Jamie Dyke did a 15-second pit stop. Scotty Campbell did a 24-second pit stop. So, there's in the vicinity of 10 seconds different in pit time required at the second stop between these drivers. Everyone else did somewhere in the middle of those two. So this isn't over. This is definitely not the order. Unfortunately, I'm not a Supercars quality broadcaster who has the ability to do all this math, although I have a feeling, Jared, just quietly between you and me, that those guys that talk on our TV represent just the voice, and there's a bunch of really smart people in the background doing math, which you and I don't have.
Yeah, we should get to that, really, shouldn't we? Ashley Hall.
I think we deserve it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. The affordability of an entire production team that is in question here. Ashley Hall copying a meatball flag, so he's into the pit to get some repairs done. Wayne Walker, look, he's definitely working this car back and forth, but just not finding his usual pace tonight. And maybe this is just not a track that he's particularly keen on. I'm just trying to think back to his thoughts on it when we spoke to him last week, and from memory, it's not a favourite for him at all. And perhaps that's what we're seeing here. Jamie Dyke, meanwhile, really starting to turn the screws on Dan Hall. Hall goes very, very defensive. Dyke follows him over and then jumps back to the outside. They're going to be side by side through turn one. Hall has the inside line. Dyke can go over under here, but can't quite get the line that he needs here on the run down towards turn two. So we'll have another crack at it, but he'll be setting up for the end of this straight and a big move under brakes. I'm sure we'll keep an eye on this one.
Jared, I'd love to jump on board with Jamie Dyke. One thing I noticed when we were on board with Wayne Walker, if we can go to a gyro cam or something in cockpit, one thing I noticed with Wayne Walker, nearly every corner he had a big slide on corner exit. As we see here, Jamie Dyke throws it down the inside and hangs tough on the inside with Hall there, really making him work for it. And Hall holds there on the outside. Look at that big move up the hill. These guys are putting on an absolutely epic battle. Probably nowhere I'd prefer to be, Jared, than right here on board with Jamie Dyke. You see him having to hang out wide again. This is not over. This is 4 corners in a row, and you get a front row seat, ladies and gents, to see the work that Jamie Dyke is doing as he absolutely slams the door there on exit and finally gets that pass done. Now, back to my point, Jared, when we were on board last lap with Wayne Walker, we saw him having a slide off the back of every single corner, and I'd be really interested to see, one of these other cars, Scotty Gamble, Michael Stewart, Jamie Dyke, are they all suffering the same way, or is there something about this setup or this set of tyres for Wayne Walker that's really got him? We see there another slide. Now that one was bigger than most of them, but every single corner Wayne Walker was really struggling over. We see there Scott Campbell just come up through the second last corner, which is known for understeer. None there, none on the way out of the last turn. And the one really interesting seeing, Jared, is how does he get through turn one? Because while we were chatting, Wayne Walker had a huge moment through turn one when we were on board, and it really just got my attention really quickly, was just how big the flat slide was. So we didn't really see Wayne Walker having huge moments, but it was a flat slide.
Oh, there's definitely some there from Gamble.
It's that same flat slide for Gamble. So it's obviously a little bit to do with the track, but maybe Wayne Walker's just not driving, just not coping with it as well as the others. We are definitely seeing this track is really opening itself up to big flat slides on the way out of corners in these big, powerful cars.
What you might have missed while we were taking a look at that as well, Scott Gamble, another recipient of the 5-second pit lane breach penalty. So out in front right now, but a lot of work to do to make sure that he actually comes away with a podium. He's going to have to put a good deal of space on at least Jamie Dyke before the end of this race if he wants to hold on to a podium result here.
Well, of course, Jamie Dyke is the driver who took the shortest pit stop in that last pit cycle. So Jamie Dyke already has 10 seconds more pit stop to do than Gamble. So let's make it 5 seconds more now by the time you throw that penalty in. What I do reckon, what everyone needs to make sure all of these drivers will be getting fed this information. Jamie Dyke is all four wheels in the corner of the track. If that man is still facing forward, he will have very sore knuckles, Jared, from how tightly he was just gripping that steering wheel, I think. Just quickly, the point that I was making, all these drivers get fed the information about penalties as they race as well. They will all know the penalties that they've got. These drivers have all got another pit stop to do. They will be absolutely aware that they made a mistake. Some of them, though, may not know what the exact mistake was. All they'll be told is that there was a infringement, and if they thought that they got it right, there is every possibility, Jared, that some of these drivers may cop a second penalty just through not being fully aware of what it was that they did first one, if they're not, fully across the exact intricacies of that particular rule.
What is honestly just blowing my mind right now, Josh, is that 2 nights in a row of coverage, we are talking about the importance of understanding the rule book by which you're playing. Last night we had a brilliant moment where, off the back of a safety car restart, a driver, we see another 5-second breach, this time to car number 18, Simon Barrington. We saw a brilliant safety car restart last night, a driver in 5th place who seemed to be the only one in that front pack who actually remembered where the control line was, jumped the rest of the field while they were all sitting behind the leader, who was actually waiting for, I suppose it would have been the start-finish line of the grid rather than the control line. And got out to a 2 or 3 second lead in the space of half the straight just by knowing the rules by which you're playing. Now, this is a slightly different application of that same argument. You've got to be on top of this stuff because otherwise it can really cost you or really benefit you depending on which particular application we're talking about.
Yeah, you make a really good point, Jared. I'm probably guilty of it as much as others. We are all, we all race iRacing, and we do all of these different leagues and official races and all these things, and probably 99% of the rules transfer from league to league. So when you join a new league, you read their rule book and you move on. But every league has these little intricacies, and like you said, knowing the rule book inside out really allows you to either maximise the benefit to you when you can, as we see Matt Vanderkrandt dive into pit. So there we go. He's the first of the second stoppers.
Nice little 10-lap sprint home for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice amount of laps. Now, knowing the rules can sometimes benefit you, like you saw last night, but sometimes it's just about minimising penalties, whether it's knowing the overlap rule in the league that you're racing in, so you know how much overlap you've got to get, and when you get to fight for position and when you've got to give it up, and if you make contact with another car, is it going to be no further action because you were in the right spot, or are you about to get a penalty? All the way through to these pit lane penalties, and ASR actually have a pretty interesting pit lane rulebook. In most of iRacing, Jared, you are permitted to transit either the fast lane or the slow lane, whatever you choose. And to be fair, a lot of people choose to transit the slow lane because the slow lane has what we call ghosting applied. You drive through the other cars that are in the slow lane, but the fast lane doesn't. So if you're trying to merge into the fast lane, or if someone slows in the fast lane, you will actually hit them. So most people in iRacing use to their advantage the ghosting feature of the slow lane. As soon as they come into pit lane, they move over to slow lane and they just drive through the car, pull up in their base. We see Jamie Dyke out there again. That man is flirting
he's
with
just
danger.
He's just testing the limits, I'm sure.
If we get the chance to chat to him tonight, I will be interested to know how many times he had an almighty scare, because I can assure you that he's not enjoying
penalties for that matter.
Yeah, look, he's racking up those off-track penalties. He would be watching them and knowing how many he can get away with. I certainly don't think that Jamie Dyke is going out there to gain an advantage. He's just pushing absolutely as hard as he possibly can. I can promise people watching that that is actually slowing Jamie down, so he's not gaining an advantage out there, but he would know how many X count or how many incident points he's got to play with, and he will be using them as he needs to stay up the front. Now, quickly back to the ASR pit lane rule. In ASR, you are not permitted to transit the slow lane for any more than 5 pit bays, Jared. So you must transit in the fast lane, and upon approach to your bay, you may pull up in your bay, and then immediately transit back out or immediately move back out to the fast lane. This pit lane is a bit odd because there's actually 2 fast lanes, but there were some rules communicated today on how you can use those 2 fast lanes, and I think that people may have been caught not paying a huge amount of attention to the Discord today, potentially didn't read those clarifications, and they're being called out on a bit of a technicality. But at the end of the day, the rules are the rules, and everybody plays to the same rules, Jared. So if you break them, you're going to get penalised.
Do indeed. I'm just thinking back to every single official race I've ever been in where the rule seems to be transit through the pit bays themselves. The number of times I've been driven through by other cars. But anyway, check out this view from Dan Hall. I think this will give us a really good shot of Jamie Dyke on the way through this kink. Just a little application of brakes to get it in, and he's certainly tidied it up there, keeps it on the tarmac. I think last time was probably just perhaps a car width too far for Jamie Dyke, and he's decided he'd rather not have that level of grip disappear from underneath him, as he looks to take it just a little bit more, let's say, cleanly through the kink there.
Yeah, these cars, they have a propensity for understeer anyway, Jared, and like you said, it's half a car width at the apex. Probably pushes you so wide that you're in the grass on the exit. So such a small, as we see there, Hall make up a fair bit of ground on pit entry, and it'll be interesting to see whether he got that stopped in time and avoids an iRacing penalty. But that kink, you only need to miss the apex by such a small amount, and suddenly you will find yourself way out on the grass on the outside. As we see here, Dyke and Hall and Wayne Walker all in the pits, and we saw them there all transiting that very far left fast lane before an immediate dive into their pit bay. Servicing is taking place. I'll be interested to see where Hall comes out compared to Dyke. I think that Dyke's got a pretty long pit stop due to how short his pit stop was in the first run. There we go. Dyke's back out straight across to that fast lane, and like we thought, Hall is already up the road.
He lights the tyres up.
Yeah, Hall probably needs to take his steel cap safety toe boots off and put some racing boots on, because apparently his right foot is pretty heavy.
And this is an interesting one. Matt Vanderkran's in this group at the moment, but of course he's had his second stop. So Mark pointing out ahead of him as well, also getting the second stop done. And this is where they start to almost pray for that safety car to just force the front end of this field to come back to them a bit. It's still a long way to go, of course, with 9 laps here. It's a 2-minute lap, so you're still talking almost 20 minutes of racing to go. Plenty of drivers still to do their second pit stop. Wayne Walker, though, at the moment you've got to think pretty well positioned after his second stop. He's 48, 49 seconds back from Scott Gamble right now. I think we'd expect to see a sub 1 minute pit stop. This will be interesting. Michael Stewart in now, so keep your eye on the total time for this stop for Stewart and indeed for Ken Latta, because if Wayne Walker goes past them here, then Scott Gamble is going to be really, really worried, and he's going to have to push as late as he can to minimise the amount of time that he needs to spend in the pit bay in the hopes of staying ahead of Wayne Walker come race end.
Now, of course, just making sure that I have remembered this correctly, Scott Gamble has that 5 seconds penalty hanging over his head. So not only does he have to stay out in front, but he's ideally going to pull a 5-second gap.
real mix of drivers here in terms of who's made stops and who hasn't. As we see, Andrew Johnston just says, "No thanks, I'll get out of the way here," and it may in fact be heading to the pits himself. We'll see if he peels off here and heads in. And sure enough, into the pit lane goes Johnston. We've got all of these drivers now that Johnston has pulled out of this little pack. All of these drivers, Point, Van der Kram, Mackay and Allman, all having made their second stop, so they are absolutely battling for race finish position now. It's going to be a very, very interesting battle between these four. Oh, as Point gets very sideways.
Makes a mistake.
That's a big moment. He's recovered it somehow, keeps it on the track. Lorne McKee will look to capitalise on that, might get it done, but Matt Van der Kram says, "Thank you very much, I'll take the clean air out in front," and away he goes.
And interestingly now, Van der Kram, 4.9 seconds off the back of Jamie Dyke. Ken Latta is out of the pits and, really only just in front of Jamie Dyke. So you've got Daniel Hall, Ken Latta, Jamie Dyke, all line astern here. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys go, but
Gamble's in.
Okay, so Gamble's in. We'll have to remember that he's got a 5-second penalty. Realistically, I think that Matt Van der Kram has driven from 20th and he's probably in the battle for 4th at the moment, which is pretty impressive.
Fourth is a bit of an ask, I reckon, but you never know. You never know. He's got a lot of work to do to catch these three, who are. I would have to think these three are actually battling for probably third at the moment. Once Gamble comes back out, you'll have Walker and Gamble, and then you'll have Stewart, Hall, and Latta, as well as Jamie Dyke.
Yes, so, you probably are correct.
Yeah, Van der Kram. Look, Van der Kram's still going to get a stellar finish, considering that he started back in 19th at the beginning of this race. Let's not take anything away from that. Scott Gamble gets back out on track ahead of Wayne Walker.
Safety car, Jared. So
what's happened there? Ashley Hall's gone off track, and that's brought on the safety car, I think.
I think this is the second meatball this race for Ashley. So that's devastating news. If not a big crash, potentially one of those infamous blown engines.
Let's just see it's this crest again. Oversteps it, and
unfortunately
contact.
This time, and that will be quite probably an engine, but definitely some significant suspension damage at the front. We are under safety car. We'll see how this all washed out. This is, of course, the last thing that Scott Gamble wants. The last thing that he can afford is for the entire field to be grouped behind the safety car to exacerbate that 5-second penalty that he's got.
Exactly what's about to happen, though, unfortunately for Scott Gamble. Great news, of course, for the likes of Stewart, Hall, Latta, Dyke, Van der Kram. They're all going to get another crack at Wayne Walker here. The gap was looking very, very difficult to close, but I suspect that Wayne Walker's probably... Look, he's not going to be... He's not going to be too concerned at this stage, I wouldn't think. He knows that he has to just finish somewhere within 5 seconds of the back of Scott Gamble, and he'll take the position after that penalty's applied. But it's honestly, if this safety car had come maybe 2 laps earlier, this would have been a completely different scenario.
That's the joys of motor racing, Jared.
Isn't it just?
Now, let's talk a little bit of strategy here. If you're Wayne Walker, Jared, and you know that Scott Gamble has a 5-second penalty hanging over their head, do you get into a race so that you get to meet the checkered flag first? Or do you simply let Scotty Gamble go, knowing that he is going to be putting in qualifying laps to extend his gap over as many people as he can, and simply tuck in behind him and use his toe to drag you along so that you put in the best gap that you can?
Well, that's a tough call, and I'll be honest, from my perspective, one of the things that I find most difficult as a driver, and granted, you know, my level of skill far different to the drivers we see on track here tonight, and not in a positive light for me, I must admit. One of the most difficult things I find as a driver is actually when you are tucked right in behind another car and you're trying to maintain race pace, but you've actually got so much dirty air to think about and you've got to be constantly on your toes for it. I actually think that almost opens up enough of a risk to Wayne Walker that it might actually serve him better to just sit back a little off the back of Gamble. You know, give him a couple of seconds of gap there, but just stay in touch without actually trying to tuck in necessarily. He doesn't need to think about fuel saving. You know, he just has to survive another, what will be 6 laps, I'm sure, if the safety car comes in on this lap. And of course, if they run again, then we're down to only 5. So he doesn't have to hold off the pack for any great length of time. But you know, the risk factor just multiplies massively when you're right on the tail of somebody.
Yeah, it does. And of course, I think you're acknowledging that
there's a skill issue there as well, of course. Yeah,
of course. But it doesn't sound like you're in the camp of fighting for the lead. And of course, there's a certain disappointment that comes with winning a race, having crossed the line second. There's no doubt about that. But a race win's a race win, and the championship doesn't write any special stories at the end, Jared. It simply says what position that you came. If it's me, I'm sitting somewhere in the vicinity of half to 3/4 of a second off the back of Scotty Gamble, enough that if something goes wrong with Scott Gamble, I can deal with it. As we see there, the safety car's in this lap. The very last thing that you want to do, in my opinion, if you're Wayne Walker, is get in a scrap with Scott Gamble, because Scott Gamble's got nothing to lose. He has absolutely no intent slowing down, and he will fight Wayne Walker absolutely to the end, to stay in front and achieve as many positions as possible. So interesting to see. Another thing that's interesting to see, Jared, I am pretty darn sure that ASR has a no tyre warming after the safety car lights are out. I did see Michael Stewart just before continuing to weave. I am assuming that the no tyre warming is the point that the safety car pulls away, so I think that he'll be okay. But if it is from the point that the safety car is announced in this lap, he could be in trouble. But we do see the field now in a very nice, orderly fashion. So I would say that Michael Stewart will be okay. It just did catch my eye to see a car weaving backwards and forwards after the safety car had advised it was returning to the pit lane.
I've just been pondering the championship situation here, and I actually think we've missed the forest for the trees here, Josh. As we go green again, Scott Gamble leads them up the hill and towards the start line. So wasting no time in getting us underway again as we resume the sprint to the finish. Wayne Walker is best served in terms of his championship race and holding on to that number 1 spot out front. He is probably best served to just think about where he actually positions the cars behind him in relation to Gamble. And this is really tough to do on the fly, right? I have no idea how you'd be calculating this while out there on track. But if you take a look at the championship standings right now, Ken Latta is back in 5th. You basically want to make sure that Scott Gamble finishes after penalties somewhere between yourself and Ken Latta to maximise the points difference that you're walking away with as Wayne Walker. Now we're talking about only a few points of difference in each position, but if you want to get really down to it and really want to start to play some 4D chess, as it were, then that's actually what Wayne Walker needs to be thinking about here is can he help Scott Gamble along to open the gap up just behind Daniel Hall sitting in 4th right now, and try and just have Gamble's adjusted time land somewhere around Michael Stewart, Daniel Hall, so that Ken Latta finishes just one spot further back than he might otherwise.
Now, I don't want to speak on behalf of Wayne Walker, but I'm going to speak on behalf of race car drivers in general.
That's too bloody hard, isn't it?
People who strap themselves into 1.5 ton pieces of metal and then drive them as fast as they possibly can in between concrete walls generally aren't all that smart. And
now that's contentious.
And so the concept that Wayne Walker is going to be able to do that 4G chest that you talk about is
You think it's a little unlikely?
certainly.
Is what I'm hearing.
I think it's a stretch, and I think that what Wayne Walker's focused on is doing the very best for Wayne Walker, and everything else that happens will take care of it.
Pointing and Orman side by side down into turn one. Orman backs out of it, and probably pretty wise at this point of the race. You really don't want to risk coming together with just 5 laps to go, 4.5 by the time I'm done getting this sentence out, I'm sure. And yeah, look, you're probably on the money. And again, you know, we talk about the broadcast teams in the professional leagues having all this information being fed through to them. In the professional race world, I'm pretty sure there would be a team of engineers figuring all this out and telling Wayne exactly what pace he needs to be setting for the next few laps to make that happen. But in the absence of that, yeah, look, I don't think he's probably thinking too much about those calculations himself.
No, absolutely not. You can see that he's settled in at that 6/10 behind Scott Gamble. So I think he's absolutely decided that he's not interested in getting a fight with Scott. He's going to let him run his race. Scott's definitely not going to pull 5 seconds on the field. Wayne Walker knows that. These cars don't respond well to being driven on the very limit. And Wayne Walker probably knows that he can reduce the likelihood he crashes that car by about 50% if he drives it about 5% easier. So, you know, by driving at 95% of your capability in these cars, you would probably halve the likelihood that you're going to make a mistake big enough to have an accident. So, you know, does Wayne Walker have the outright speed to race with Scott Gamble? Probably. Is it worth the risk? Absolutely not.
Speaking of taking the risk, Nick Heusler sends it up the side of Manuel and gets the pass done. So a really, really clean move there as we see heel litter being thrown absolutely everywhere off the race slicks as they get through a section of track that's obviously seeing a little bit of exploration of the track limits. Heusler doing a little bit more exploration of his own, hands back at that position, plus an extra to Grant as well. So drops back to 18th off the back of that. Scott Gamble just set the fastest lap of the race at 209.41. Wayne Walker at 209.49, just behind him. So both running very, very quick laps here. They're looking to put a bit of space on the rest of the field if they can. Walker just holding at the moment to that 6/10 mark, as you said, from Scott Gamble. He's looking relatively comfortable to do that for the remaining 3.5 laps or so.
Yeah, so and right now the first car that is more than 5 seconds from the front is Mark Poynton in 9th. That will likely stretch out to a couple more cars. You know, I think we'll see Scott Mackay drop beyond 5 seconds this lap, and then maybe Matt Vanderkruijs by the end of the race. But I think that Scott Gamble's looking at somewhere around the 7th or 8th for his finishing position on this race. Certainly not in that vicinity of Ken Latta, like you mentioned. I don't believe at this point, Jared.
You know, we've said this, I'm sure, a couple of weeks running prior to this, Josh, but geez, we should really have a pen and paper here to write these down. I'm just thinking we're focused so much on Scott Gamble's 5-second penalty. He's not the only one. I'm desperately trying to recall if any of the other drivers in that top 10 copped themselves a similar pit lane breach. Because I'm almost certain there was one other in amongst these names. The question is who?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It wasn't Wayne Walker, I know that much. I do have some questions on Michael Stewart, whether he might have had a penalty as well, but
it was Daniel Hall
was Daniel Hall. There we go. Okay, right. So there was another name up there. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that.
We did happen to be talking at the time about how happy Daniel Hall would be.
That's right. Of course. How could I forget that? Yeah, look, so probably less happy now. Tell you what, though, for Matt Vanderkran, though, that looks like finishing in 5th place when that's said and done, which is a pretty decent comeback from 19th.
Look, it is, but right behind him, Scott Mackay up 16 spots into 8th. You know, he'll definitely move forward from Daniel Hall, I think. You know, Scott Mackay's currently still inside that magical 5 second barrier, but only just. So he may not jump Scott Gamble, but he will jump Daniel Hall. You know, that's even more impressive. You know, without disparaging anybody else in this field, we've kind of come to expect Matt Vanderkran to, you know, do Matt Vanderkran things and move forward. I think that Scott Mackay has put on a really, really impressive run this race, and you know, to come up 16 has been a really good quality drive, and probably one that caught me more unawares.
Definitely showing that he's got what it takes to mix it here. The Evolution Racing Team entry is fairly new to ASR, but making their mark very, very early on in this season as we see Ken Latta start to just wind in Daniel Hall in front. He looks to perhaps put a move on here. He's got just a little bit more pace, but he's on the outside. Dives to the inside, though. He's going to try and force the issue here up the inside of Canada Corner.
I've got my eyes closed.
Bit of contact, a little bit of rubbing of panels there as they fight for track position. Dan Hall says, nope, I can handle this, and forces Latta all the way to the edge, and there's the contact with Hall. No. Both of them off the track, then back across it. Latta comes off a little better. I'm sure Latta's not going to wait around to redress that one, because he'll be arguing his case as to his right to that particular part of the road. But what that means for everyone else is another couple of positions gained. Matt Vanderkran now up into 5th, Scott Mackay into 6th, Mark Poynton into 7th. That's plus 14, plus 18, and plus 13 since the start of this race for those 3 drivers. A stellar effort.
Now, interestingly, Jared, Jamie Dyke had to get on the brakes for that little issue with his teammate in Latta and Hall. Jamie Dyke is now outside the 5 second marker to Scott Gamble. So not only did that little clash massively affect Hall, because obviously now he's dropped to 12th and then has a 5 second penalty. Obviously it affected Ken Latta because he was off the road, but it's affected Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkran, who had to get on the brakes. They're now outside that 5 second moment. It is a big moment for Matt Mackay. And of course the big winner out of that is actually Scott Gamble.
It is. And look, I think by pure chance, if nothing else, you know, we were talking about Wayne Walker and his title defence. Of course, that means Ken Latta now sits all the way back in 7th. Jamie Dyke will be just outside the 5 seconds, so that's just a couple of extra points there for Walker. It's like he orchestrated that one. And
you know, it's worth noting that Ken Latta may very well yet be to receive a penalty. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not gonna write a check on this, but you know, from first look, I think that's at least going to come under a significant amount of scrutiny.
It absolutely will.
You know, there'll need to be a bit of a check of, you know, exact overlap points and all of those sorts of things come into making decisions. But Ken Latta has a really big question mark over his name, and like you said, he's fighting for the championship at the moment, and that to me, Jared, was the perfect illustration of what I was talking about at the start of the race. With does Wayne Walker race Scott Gamble? Hall knew that he had a penalty hanging over his head. He was not interested in giving up any track position because he's already going to lose it at the end of the race. And the last thing that he was prepared to do was give up more track position. Ken Latta went racing over a position that he was going to get anyway. That's not to say that you blame him. I can absolutely see why and how. Speaking of why and how, Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkrandt are absolutely throwing down at the moment. Matt Vanderkrandt has somehow managed to keep just a tiny bit of overlap, and he now has the inside running down into turn 5. Huge stop at the bottom of the hill. Jamie Dyke now needs to find a way to slam the door on Mackay, which he's not going to be able to do. Jamie Dyke is on the outside now for the run up the hill. How does he get moved back across?
There's contact with Vanderkrandt.
There's a small, and Matt Vanderkrandt's rolled it. That is a huge accident. I need to see that again before I make any sort of comment, but just the smallest amount of overlap between Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkrandt. Those guys absolutely playing for keeps. Jamie Dyke has had to roll out of it. Two possible things that I can see there. Two guys fighting a piece of track in the middle of the track, which will require a huge amount of scrutiny, or Matt Vanderkrandt trying to push over to get the racing line back, not realising that he had the tiniest bit of overlap still there, in which case it is, play on, and unfortunately Matt Vanderkrandt did that to himself. Without going and watching it in replay, we won't know. But certainly, again, a question mark over the top of Jamie Dyke. And Jared, if you can believe this, Michael Stewart is now outside the 5 seconds. Scott Gamble, after all of this, is only going to one position.
I mean, that's best case scenario for him, isn't it? And I do wonder if Gamble and Walker are even aware of what's been going on behind them. But here they come across the line. So Scott Gamble will take the honours at the line, but Wayne Walker takes the win post-penalty. And then Michael Stewart will come through a long way back, 7, almost 8 seconds behind.
He's running out of fuel. He's out of fuel. He did not make it. Scott Mackay makes it to the line for 1/100th of a second. Is it, Joe?
It looks like 7/100th of a second between Scott Mackay, Michael Stewart, Ken Latta. I want to go back and have a very, very close look at that as well. And a 30-second post-race penalty for Jamie Dyke as well. Okay. Wow,
if we can
huge.
go back and have a look at that, that is a big penalty.
We've got a few things to take a look at here. Let's take a look, though, at this one for Michael Stewart and Scott Mackay at the line.
Now, how good's your slow down, Jared, and your pause finger? We see there Scott Gamble takes the lead. Takes the win. Wayne Walker right behind. So those guys will reverse position under the penalty. A lapped car in the middle, and then right here looks like it's got wrapped up, but he all of a sudden slows down. This is absolutely a fuel issue. And just losing pace. And look right there, he was done for at the line. So Michael Stewart, unfortunately, giving up a podium position at the line by 3/100ths of a second.
What do you even say? That's
what you say is, I really should have put 1 more litre of fuel in my car.
1 more litre. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go back and we're going to take a look at this incident with Vanderkrandt and Jamie Dyke, because it looks like Jamie Dyke has been handed the penalty for it.
And so we saw this, the big run all the way through that turn 4, it's not really a turn, down to turn 5. Matt Vanderkrandt had overlap. Jamie Dyke tries to hang tough. He can hang around the outside here, so Jamie Dyke uses the apron, and then we just see there. So it'd be interesting to get just a chase view or something, Jared, and just go back a little bit. But the determination has been made, as we do here. So we follow the cars. We start to run up the hill. Jamie Dyke hangs on the outside, and they just start to... Wow. I'm actually not sure that I agree with that, Jared. I've got to be honest. Jamie Dyke had 2 wheels at least on the fog line and probably in the grass. I think that what's happened there personally is that Matt Vanderkrandt has been trying to squeeze open the line to get that rate, that full racing line back. And unfortunately, there was about 2% of a fishy Mustang with its nose still up the inside. If I'm Jamie Dyke, I'm gobsmacked by that penalty. there may be more information than what we've got. Our stewards do have, access to be able to sit down and watch different angles, and obviously they've got the rule book in front of them. But at real first view, that's a tough penalty for Jamie Dyke.
Yeah, and I guess this is why we have review sessions post races, right? And why there are appeals and all the rest of it, because ASR has a no appeal policy, Jared. Race
decisions are final.
That is a point as well. With wow, I mean, what do you?
There's nothing to say. The penalty has been handed out, and he has to take it. But if we look at that, 30 seconds, that's going to put him to plus 40. That is a 19th position finish for Jamie Dyke.
It is. That's going to be a bit to absorb, I suspect. Look, we'll go through the results in just a moment, but let's have a chat to some of the drivers first of all, and we will start off with Wayne Walker. Wayne, welcome back to the booth again, my friend.
Thank you.
That was a very, very interesting last sort of 5 or 10 laps post the safety car there. Where do you want to start in talking us through your race here tonight, mate?
I don't know. I pitted early, try and get out of the traffic and try and do an undercut, and did the same for the second stop as well. Stopped early, trying to jump people in pits. But yeah, if we didn't have that safety car in the last, with sort of 5 laps to go, like Scott, they said he's got a 5-second penalty for a pit lane breach. So without that safety car, he would have won still, even with the 5-second penalty.
A really big race for you tonight, Wayne, and Jared and I took the time under that safety car to have a chat about, what does Wayne Walker do from here? Do you race? Do you try and get in front of Scott Gamble and disappear up the road and get that, that pleasure of meeting the checkered flag? Were you thinking the same thing? Was there any strategy after the safety car restart? Scott Gamble obviously was going to go as fast as he could, as quickly as he could to gap 5 seconds on as many people as possible. Did you think about racing him? Were you happy just to sit there? What was that meant in that safety car?
I knew he had the 5-second penalty, so my goal was to try and just stick with him, because Gamble tonight, he just had I reckon a few tenths a lap quicker. So I don't think there was any way I was gonna pass him after that safety car.
Yeah, that's pretty fair enough. From where we sat, Scotty Gamble was insanely fast all night. You're right. What about the rest of what was going on? How aware were you up in second place of the absolute mayhem that was unfolding, particularly in the last lap and a half?
Yeah, I didn't sort of realise until I'd crossed the finish line how far sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th, all that were behind. So yeah, I wasn't actually sure what was going on.
I'm gonna very much encourage you to go back and take a look at the end of the broadcast, mate, because it will be an interesting watch for you, I am sure. I can assure you that it was not a 10-second gap up until about halfway through that final lap. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Leave a little bit of mystery for you, Wayne. A stellar drive again tonight, and taking some excellent points. Of course, once all those penalties come in. Great to chat to you again. Looking forward to probably doing it again, I'm sure, over the coming weeks.
Yep, thank you.
Wayne Walker there, taking P2 on track. We'll go now to Scott Mackay. Scott, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Mate, how did you survive that chaos, first of all?
I don't know, mate. There was just I just kept in a straight line and watched everyone just fall off the road. It was pretty crazy.
It was certainly a bit of a special one to watch from up here in the booth, and we've just been trying to unpack it a little bit before we started to catch up with everyone. But probably most excitingly for you, just over 700th at the line there as Michael Stewart, I can only assume, ran out of fuel going up the hill to the finish line. Did you think you were going to get him? When did you know that you had a shot at that?
I actually thought I had a shot because I could see how quick I was catching him a few corners before that, and then I nearly blew it. I got a bit excited out of the last corner and pushed it wide and nearly let Kenny get both of us. But I knew he was pretty short, 2 corners before the straight.
Well, it made for a brilliant shot. We've just told Wayne Walker to go back and have a look at the broadcast pretty quickly to see what happened behind him on that last lap. I'm going to tell you to do the same because there is a phenomenal shot of the three of you coming across the start finish line, which was just an absolute pleasure to watch, honestly, from our perspective. Mate, you've driven a really, really quality race tonight. It's something that we're hoping to see a lot more of from you across the rest of the season. How are you finding settling in, though, to the ASR pack of drivers?
I'm pretty familiar with most of them, racing with them in vets and whatnot. And it's a really cool format, how they changed the format up. I really like that. But yeah, it's been a pretty mixed start to the season for me, but hopefully I can get some stuff sorted.
Well, onwards and upwards from here, Scott. Congratulations on the result tonight, and a very, very solid drive that should fill you with confidence for the second half of the season, I'm sure.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks to everything you do.
Scott Mackay takes third across the line there, and we'll go now to our on-track winner, Scott Gamble. Scott, are you with us?
Yeah, I am, mate. Yes,
mate. What a finish to that one, hey? How was that out in front? I think probably enjoying the clear air a lot more than people not so far behind you on track.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just get out in front. Well, I had the head on a little bit. I wanted to put the head down after they gave me a 5-second penalty for pit lane infringement on the first stop, where I went. I think I crossed 1 or 2. No, the second pit stall as you enter was when I moved over into the fast lane. So I got a 5-second penalty for that. So it was heads down and try and counter that. And I had it covered, guys. I had it legit covered through pit stops until they brought the safety car out. And I was like, here we go.
Well,
that's all part of the fun.
It is, mate. We were doing all sorts of crazy maths here in the booth, just trying to decide, what does Wayne Walker do? How does he best impact on his championship chase, and how does he take full advantage of the 5-second gap? Honestly, we had you slated for about a 7th or 8th position finish post penalty, and then it all unfolded behind you, and you're going to finish up in second regardless. So, all things considered, you must be pretty chuffed with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was good fun. Like I said, we come in just to use it as a bit of fun. I know a lot of guys take it pretty seriously, but we're here to have fun, enjoy our racing, and that's what it's about. And and that's part of it. And as much as things happen on track and penalties get applied, that's all part of the fun and part of the racing. So, no hard feelings on my side with it. And unfortunate for the other guys, I think Michael Stewart had a little bit of a fuel issue coming into the last lap, so that might have sent him backwards, whereas he was easily going to get P2 for the night.
He had a big fuel issue.
I just got to ask, Scott, I've just been looking down the list, and all of the people that with probably 2 laps to go were set to finish in front of you with your 5-second penalty, and who took themselves out, took someone else out, ended up being a litre of fuel short. Do you owe any of these guys cartons of beers? Like, were you in and out of Discord channels under the safety car asking people to do stuff, or
I know you can ask,
because it's just gone to absolute carnage behind you there.
Well, you go ask race control how much that helped them with my 5-second penalty, mate, and then we can talk about cartons of beers from there.
Look, it was, from my perspective, it was probably a pretty sedate 20, maybe even 21 laps, in reality, and then we crammed all of the actually expected in a 25-lap race into the last 3 laps. So it's a fantastic watch. I had a lot of fun, but yeah, you certainly got out of that penalty pretty lightly tonight, which is great for your championship, and Going to be interesting to see how the rest of the year unfolds. We're in that back half of the year now, and it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, well, in all seriousness, obviously it's good to have a bit of a joke, but in all seriousness, Wayne's absolutely flying. He's in real good form at the moment, and winning V8 Vets last round, which was absolutely sensational of him to do. So he's absolutely flying. Michael Stewart and your team, he's out there. He's really putting the hammer down. Ladder, as you always know, he's a cracking driver. And then you got your own teammates, Scotty Mackay, Dan Hall. They're really good drivers. And if they get a good run, you'll see them up towards the front as well. So yeah, it's good. The competition's good. Most of the time, it's pretty friendly between the guys. We know each other pretty well. We know how each other drives. So yeah, that's what it's about. Just getting out, having fun, and it is. It's good fun. That's what it's about.
Mate, I think as a definite apology to a lot of your sponsors who are probably not correctly listed here on our championship standings. I'm just making notes here that we need to do a bit of updates in the background. But anyone you want to give a shout out to before we say goodbye to you for the evening?
Oh, look, 9.5 would absolutely love it that you've got me up on the logo. I did register with ERT at the start of the season, but yeah, 9.5 be absolutely loving it. They're a good bunch of guys. I still talk to them all the time too, so shout out to them. They're a good bunch of lads. But as far as being with Evolution Racing Team, they are my teammates. I've known them for a long time, many years in fact, and they are a really good bunch of lads. And a big shout out to Logitech G. I mean, they make it all possible for me. They've helped me out along the way, so absolutely endorse their gear and use it. So thank you very much to Logitech.
Well, Scott, a stellar drive. It's a shame about the result post penalties not being quite reflective of just how solid of an effort you put in tonight, but absolutely should hold the head very high because you earned every bit of that this evening. Congrats on the win on paper, at least, as we came across the line, and certainly looking forward to getting an opportunity to chat to you again later in the season, mate.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thank you.
Scott Gamble there takes the checkered flag first. Look, again, there's penalties to consider and everything, Josh, as always, but we'll have to leave all of that for the wrap up and the review for next week, I think, because there's so many to consider here tonight that I don't think I can even trust our points to be anything like accurate.
No, there's a lot to unpack out of that. One thing I'll note, I did make the mention just earlier, Jared. Obviously, we saw that 30-second penalty come up for Jamie Dyke, and I made the note that ASR have a no appeals policy. A little bit of insider knowledge. Matt Vanderkruijt has actually sent a message to the stewards and said that he personally disagrees with that penalty. He thinks that he's at fault for moving over and squeezing Jamie Dyke. So I'm not sure exactly how the process flows from here, whether there is the ability for those for the stewards to change their mind if they agree. We certainly know that there's no appeals, but there very well may be the ability for the stewards to put their hand up if they believe that they agree with Matt Vanderkruijt and change that penalty. So I think you're right that there's no point in trying to do points, because there's penalties up in the air, there's penalties that need to be applied, there's penalties that we can't make, we can't remember all of them. So what we know, we talked about it last week, Jared, there's still so long to go that these race nights are worth so many points that anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. No one has the championship wrapped up. You've only got to look at Matt Vanderkruijt, went from 18th to 4th and back to 18th. Anything can happen. The championship's wide open. We'll have a look next week and see where it all washes out.
Absolutely, and we do hope you'll join us again for next week's racing. Plenty more to come in this season with Alliance Sim Racing as we look to the midpoint, round 5, just a week away now. It's been such a collection of really varied race results and some very interesting moments across the first 4 rounds of this season. It's shaping up to be an absolute cracker across the rest of it, of course. Make sure you don't miss any of it. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below to make sure you get notification when we go live again, same time next week for round number 5. Until then, though, and a massive thank you, of course, to everybody tuning in at home from both Alliance Sim Racing and our major sponsors, Quantum Tint Solutions and AA West Automotive. And of course, from Josh and myself here at Simple Racing Broadcast, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring this to you again this evening. We are all set for another round of this next week, but of course, tune in over on the Simple channel on Thursday night if you haven't got your racing fix yet, as we look to some open wheel action with the F4 Championship from Formula Drivers League as well. We got all the racing going on. It's a great time to be part of it. It's a great thing to be watching as well. Far more accessible, I'll be honest, than a lot of your real world racing series in terms of the amount of coverage available. So do stay tuned. That does wrap it up from us here at Simple Racing Broadcasts. And on behalf of Alliance Sim Racing, a very big thank you once again for tuning in. We will see you next week. It is goodbye for now.